On behalf of the Area Agency on Aging of Pasco Pinellas, I welcome you to Aging on the Suncoast. This year, the theme for Older Americans Month is Safe Today, Healthy Tomorrow, with a focus on injury prevention and a call to provide information to older Americans to help them stay healthy and active. The Administration of Community Living indicates older adults are at a much higher risk of unintentional injury and even death than the rest of the population. Unintentional injuries to this population result in at least 6 million medically treated injuries and more than 30,000 deaths every year. On today's show, we will discuss the health promotion programs that are available to help elders reduce the risk of injury and to help those with chronic diseases take control of their lives. I'm pleased to welcome 2 members of the CARES Incorporated staff who conduct the health promotion programs in Pinellas and Pasco counties. Pat Savonic is the Health and Wellness Coordinator, and Clark Perry is the Health and Wellness Educator. Welcome to Aging on the Suncoast. Thank you for joining us today. Pat, there are some general principles about staying healthy and staying active, particularly for elders. Can you share some of those with us?
Well, I think the key word you said is staying active. I think when we retire does not give us an excuse to become couch potatoes. You just really have to remain active. I said to my doctor one time, I thought I would retire, and he said, don't do it. Because that's when people start watching their health decline because they're not active enough. They don't have things to distract them, if you will, to stay busy. You know, have a hobby, volunteer, get out in the community and continue to socialize. That's very important. Plus, of course, you know, your medical issues need to be addressed with the doctor. Take your medications, eat healthy. We oftentimes think that once we're retired, we can just go ahead and give up on eating well, and it's so important that we continue to have good nutrition.
It's almost as in the early stages of our life, babies and infants, good nutrition is so important.
Right.
And I would imagine that as we become less active and as we age, good nutrition again becomes very important, that what we eat is nutrient dense.
And it'd be nice if we continued that through all of our lives, but there is that middle part where we think we're invincible and we don't have to pay attention to being active or eating well, but that becomes more important as your health starts to decline or you start to feel a little weaker. Many times we find people who are at home and isolated and maybe having some dementia, no memory, whatever, and just find that they've not been eating.
Right, that they forget to do that, or they don't have the energy to do the cooking, the shopping.
And once they're fed well and get around some other people and become socially active, then they have a whole new lease on life.
And I think I've mentioned before on the show that I believe it's almost 27% of our elders in Pinellas and Pasco County live alone, which is higher than the national average. It's higher than the state average. So people who live alone are more challenged to get out and be socially active. And as you have already stated, there are so many advantages to that it's really.
I think transportation's a big issue, but that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother show.
Right.
But for those people who can no longer drive, then they are challenged to find a way to be involved right in their own community or, you know, somewhere that's easy to get to.
And during this show, we will run our senior helpline telephone number. There are resources out there. There's dining sites that provide free meals 5 days a week and social programs and can provide transportation. There are transportation resources in the community. There are senior centers in Pasco and Pinellas County. So if anyone's watching and they're hearing what you're saying about, you know,
staying active and staying out with other people, then there are resources in our area.
Certainly call our helpline and one of our staff will discuss some of those with them. Fortunately, though, we also have health promotion programs that are available in our community. There's a wide variety of them, but today we're going to discuss the ones that are funded, federally funded, because the federal government realizes how important this is. And They are available through Cares Incorporated, both in Pasco and Pinellas County.
Right.
Clark, I understand you are one of the instructors for this variety of programs, so you're out in the community frequently.
I am.
Working with our seniors. You know, with anything in life, I just recently, our nephew was here and he's talking about buying a house, and I said, you know, you need to start reading up on it. You need to be prepared. We need to be prepared to be active as we age, and that sometimes involves getting information, and CARES is an excellent place to get that information. And to someone who wants to enroll in one of these courses, not only are you getting information, but you're getting an incentive to get out there and to learn. People who are interested in one of the courses should be calling CARES. We'll run that telephone number.
Okay.
Okay. And one of the ones that since we've started talking about nutrition and how important it is, one of your newer programs is Healthy Eating Every Day.
Right.
What does that program offer? Clark, is that one that you teach?
It is. I'm currently doing one down in Pinellas County here. It's a wonderful course. It's set up in 14 weeks of study. We meet once a week for an hour, manageable chunk of time, because it's certainly a topic that takes time, but if you overwhelm someone with all this nutrition things, nutrition things, it can be tough. But we take folks through the 20-chapter book. All the typical things are there: food pyramids and portion control and this and that and the other thing that are all important. But the primary importance of this course is being ready to change your life. And it truly is a readiness thing. And we spend a couple of chapters of that book talking about almost psychological and social issues around food, our attitudes toward food. We spent a long time building a base to start talking about the base of the food pyramid.
Okay. That's interesting that you talk about the social aspect of food, because it is very, very much from when we are young, and you must encounter people who have very different frames of reference regarding food. Those who eat to live and those who live to eat. And
very social. And you mentioned that statistic, about 27% of our population in this area living alone. Mealtime is a completely different thing from when you had a family, we're cooking for 3 or 4 people, and we talk about those issues. And those are real issues, very, very real. And we learn from each other, too, in these courses.
Wonderful. These are what we call evidence-based courses.
Right.
And Pat, what does that mean? There's some research behind them.
Right. Evidence-based means that there has been research done on this particular program that has proven it to be successful if you follow their protocol. So some of the courses that we do come from Stanford University, from Boston University, you know, where they have had years of research to show that this is going to be successful if you follow it.
And what is the expected outcome from a program such as this? If a person has participated in the 14 weeks, what should they expect by the end of it? They're going to be more knowledgeable.
For sure. And I think that one of the things that is so practical is reading food labels. How many of us, when we shop, read the label to see how many grams of fat is in it or how many grams of sugar is in it? And those are the things that make so much difference in our daily functioning. You know, whether there's protein in it or not. Are you eating all carbohydrates? And though it doesn't get real technical, it does help, and hopefully after the end of the 14 weeks, when you go to the grocery store, you look at the labels and you make sure that you're buying things that are going to be healthy. And you talk about how can you save money. Because for many of our seniors, we're on fixed incomes. And the things that are in the store in season or out of season or get pretty expensive. So how can you do that? You know, how can you still eat vegetables and fruits, which is what we don't do enough of, is eat vegetables and fruit and meat now. Who can afford a steak anymore?
Well, you say that, but the other day I went to the grocery store and the pretzels were $3.50. And so, you know, it's a matter of making choices here. So in the class, you're really teaching strategies that can
Exactly.
be lifelong
Exactly.
strategies and empowering people to make good decisions themselves.
But in this class, it just came to a close. My evaluation, and there's an evaluation instrument, and
Right.
that's helpful for us about the administrative things, and was the class in a good setting. But for me, the thing to watch is we have snacks at these classes.
Okay.
In the early weeks, some snacks like Twinkies or donuts or icing, cookies, and cakes come in. At our closing yesterday, that class we closed yesterday, the snacks were brought in by the participants where I could see it visually. More fruits and vegetables, strawberries, fresh fruit cut up, and a lot more healthy items being brought to class for us to snack on. So I smile and I see some behavioral changes that were exciting for me. And
good. That speaks
a
volumes
wonderful thing.
about outcomes because
Right. And,
the knowledge is being embraced and lived.
absolutely.
and hopefully that 14 weeks is long enough that it becomes a habit.
Yes.
Yeah, it becomes a daily piece of your existence that you think about what you're going to eat.
Now, anyone who is over the age of 60 can participate in one of these classes? And they should be calling CARES. We'll be running the
Right.
telephone number if they're interested, and there is no cost for the class?
That's right. And I wanted to add, too, you can also go to our website if you have a
Okay.
computer, and there's calendars on the website that will actually show you where these classes are being held.
Good.
So, caresfl.org is our website, and there's calendars for each of the senior centers and for the health and wellness programs, too.
Okay, excellent. Another program that intrigues me is your Tai Chi Moving for Better Balance. You know, we all see the ads for Tai Chi, and that's what I would consider a up and coming, although it has a long history, but there's a lot of attention paid to Tai Chi, and you're actually offering that class to seniors.
We are. I always have to laugh when I think about when I told my granddaughter I was going to be learning Tai Chi. She said, "Oh, Granny, you're the most un-Tai Chi person in the world." So I think now I can show her what I do in Tai Chi. But it is a gentle, easy, slow exercise that helps you to increase your balance and your mobility. And that's a big issue for many of our seniors. You can do this in a wheelchair.
Oh.
You can do it standing. You can do it, I've had people who came in their wheelchair and at the end were standing doing some of the exercises. Maybe holding on to a chair while they did it, but it's really fascinating. It's a lovely. By the end of the class, when everybody's moving together, it looks like a ballet. It really is nice. It really is. I just videoed my last class the other day as they were doing the routine. We just do 8 forms.
Okay.
It's not the classical form of Tai Chi, but it's research that's been done by the Oregon Research Institute. And Dr. Fuzan Lee has developed this program over the years with lots of research to determine that these are the best 8 exercises for seniors to improve their mobility and their flexibility and their balance.
Okay, so we're talking about fall prevention here and better health. To have that core strength enables you to move better all around. How is the course taught? How many sessions and how many hours are involved in this, Clark?
12 weeks, 24 sessions, twice a week. That's part of the building the habit. We meet twice a week, and it's recommended and encouraged that the participants go home and try these forms on their own in a 20 or 30-minute exercise routine of their own. And the feedback is dramatic from this course. In course, in the 3rd or 4th week, I routinely ask, did anybody fall this week or stumble? And sure enough, somebody will say, yeah, I started to fall, but it was almost like the Tai Chi came back, and I put my hand up, and I didn't fall. And I really think the Tai Chi helped me. And those are the kind of quotes that we start to hear right away.
So again, strategies, being proactive.
You can hear stories of the balance improving. And at the end of the course, we do some pre-tests, physical activities. My favorite is the stand up, sit down. How many times can a person stand and sit in 30 seconds? Just 30 seconds.
Okay.
As the course begins, 3 or 4, maybe 5 times. The most fit, maybe 7 or 8. By the end of the course, by the end of 12 weeks, they can stand and sit multiple times over what they started. If they could stand and sit 4 or 5 times in 30 seconds, they're standing 10, 12 times in 30 seconds. So we see some strength built as well, and endurance. And it's a very gentle, easy course, but it gives folks the thought that perhaps I could do something else. Maybe I could go on to Silver Sneakers or Sit and Be Fit or go out to a gym or community center and do another kind of exercise. So it's a nice entry-level activity.
It builds confidence.
Builds some confidence.
Wonderful. We're going to take a break now, but when we come back, I'd like to talk some about the chronic disease self-management program that you offer, because again, this is working with people who have, many of whom have chronic diseases, and again, providing strategies. So I hope our audience will join us again after this short break.
Elder abuse is always devastating, but it may not always be obvious. Isolation, coercion, and the withholding of medication are only a few of the more subtle forms of elder abuse that occur every day to thousands of our senior citizens. Please join me in the fight to end elder abuse. Our elders deserve better. Visit the website of the National Center on Elder Abuse. It's time to speak up.
During the first segment, we have been talking with Pat Savonic and Clark Perry, staff members of CARES Incorporated, about the health promotion programs that they offer. We've talked about the nutrition program, we've talked about the Tai Chi Matter of Balance, so we've talked about activity and nutrition. Let's talk now, one of the classes that you offer is a chronic disease self-management class. Clark, what do you consider, for purposes of the class, chronic diseases?
The first thing that happens when folks come into this chronic disease self-management program, CDSMP as we call it, is, well, I don't have a chronic disease, but it takes some time to unpack that. So we introduce ourselves. I'm Clark Perry. My chronic disease is arthritis, and it is. And oh yeah, I have arthritis, folks say. And then COPD, you name them. High blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes. We'll address that and some other issues too. But we just kind of start making people comfortable to understand that maybe I do have some chronic ailment.
Okay. And once they understand that it's appropriate for them to be part of the class, what is the class hoping to address?
Then management skills for all of that.
Okay.
That just because I have arthritis, it doesn't have me. I can still stay engaged. I can still participate in a class like Living Healthy. I prefer to call it that. CDSMP is way too clinical for me. It's living healthy with a chronic disease, and we can. And we can have arthritis or COPD or high blood pressure and still stay engaged in life. But what are some of the skills to do that when I don't feel like going to the nutrition site? How do I get myself to get up and go? And we talk about some of those things. Simple things like distraction techniques and ways to distract yourself from some pain you might be feeling that day. Not debilitating pain, but the pain that makes you think, I want to stay in my easy chair, but no, we can get by this and go to the nutrition site or out for a shopping event or a concert with a friend.
So that we can continue to live life despite some rather...
We don't have to let the chronic disease corner us. We're not cornered. We can still function, and not just function, but thrive, even with these conditions that we have.
Do you deal with some of the emotions that come forth as a result of...
I think the second or third session, that's the whole program is devoted to...
Difficult emotions.
Difficult emotions. And how do you deal with that? Depression, discouragement, anger.
And that must be affirming to someone that has been dealing with the disease on their own with medical care, but to realize that it is realistic to have these emotions, to be resentful that you have limitations.
I think one of the big parts that's so helpful in these classes is that they find that they're not the only ones that are dealing with this, that there are other people who are angry because they have you know, something that can't be cured, and that's what defines a chronic disease from an acute disease.
Okay.
An acute illness you'll get over it. You had the
Right.
flu or you broke your arm and you're going to get over that. A chronic illness is something that's not going to be healed, that we're
Right.
going to have to deal with all of our lives. So maybe we need to make some adjustments. Maybe you can't run a marathon anymore, but you can walk. You can walk a couple of blocks, you know. So maybe you don't ride bike rides, but you can ride around your complex on your three-wheel bike.
Right.
You know, so there are adjustments that you make to learn, and people have a tendency to maybe get a little depressed and a little frustrated and say, well, I can't do this anymore. I had a lady tell me one time that she couldn't play cards anymore. And I said, why not? And she said, because I've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And I said, but how does that affect your card playing? Well, it doesn't. I said, then play cards.
Right.
You know,
Giving them permission to move forward.
When
yes.
the time comes that it affects I said, one of your lady friends will tell you
Yes.
when you're no longer playing correctly.
Right.
And then that's a time for you perhaps to find an easier game to play.
Right. Right.
But, you know, there are just so many things that we can do to keep our lives exciting. And one of the bases of these programs is what we call the action plan. So each week, each person finds some goal they'd like to set for the next week, small goals. Like, I'd like to lose 100 pounds, but my goal for this next week is to lose 1 pound. And how will I do that? Well, in my action plan, my way to do that will be to cut out bread for lunch and dinner.
Okay.
And so I keep track of that during the week, and when I come back to class next week, I'll report on whether or not I was successful with my action plan. Maybe your action plan will be to ride your bike for 5 miles, because he rides a lot. But so everybody picks something they want to do, not what somebody else told them they had to do,
Right.
but something that they want to do and how they can accomplish that in a small goal within a week's time.
Which is giving you control over
Right.
that aspect
Control
of your life.
and support in getting things done, and it's just amazing how much difference it makes when people come in and they'll say, well, I only did it 4 days this week, I didn't get 5 done. Hey, 4 is a great
Right.
success, you know.
Clark,
So-
are you seeing big differences from the beginning to the end of the class?
Very much. We can see that. The goal might be I need to drink more water. Well, how much? How often? Well, I'm going to put out 3 bottles of water in the morning, and my goal is to make sure those bottles of water are gone by the evening. And we've seen people come in drinking Diet Pepsi as their main source of hydration, but when they come to our closing, all of a sudden a bottle of water has appeared, and some of those changes happen. The power of the group is phenomenal. It becomes a support group. We, with a smile, say, you know what we say in this group, we keep it here, and it becomes a super support group for folks.
And how many classes are involved here? What is the commitment of the person who is a participant?
Yes, it's 6 weeks.
It's 6 weeks? Okay. So a relatively short period of time, but it
Right.
sounds like you're packing a lot of empowerment during.
Each one of those classes is at least 2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, so and we have a break in the middle with a little snack, so there's some socialization that's part of it. And many times, you know, the first session or two, nobody speaks and, you know, we're all a little bit bashful. And then by the end, they have bonded and saying, yeah, let's meet after this ends.
And I refer to these as classes, but none of
Really
what we've
workshops.
discussed is a lecture style. It's
not at all.
interactive and discussion, and okay, so nobody's sitting in their seat for 2 hours. And
No, workshop's a good description. And
Our job
almost-
really is just to facilitate, to keep things on track.
And I know originally CARES offered the chronic disease self-management class, but now you've expanded to have a diabetes self-management
Right.
class. How, Clark, does that differ from the chronic disease self-management?
It's similar, but just focused on the diabetes. A lot on nutrition. We use the same textbook for both courses, actually, but a lot more on nutrition and exercise, because that's the balance. You know, how do I keep my
Okay.
sugar levels balanced through exercise and diet and nutrition? So that's the primary difference. But the action plan stays the same. What are you going to do this week? What's your goal? Eat more fruits and vegetables. Well, how much is that? How about a V8 for breakfast, for lunch on Wednesday and Thursday this week? Great goal, Mr. Smith. We'll see how you do when you get back next week and tell us about that.
Okay. So making the thought process, when you write it down, there's some commitment there and some follow through.
Exactly.
Right.
And again, anyone who is interested in these classes can either call or they can check the caresfl.org website,
Right.
where they are listed. There's a calendar there.
And there's oftentimes a press release too, but we can't always depend on that.
Right. Is there a wait list for some of these classes? Do people call up? Can they expect that that there should be a class that they should be able to get into in the near future? Or?
Yeah, sometimes there is. It depends on the location.
Okay.
Mostly it depends on the location.
Okay.
You know, some of the facilities like the senior living facility, the classes are limited. Like the chronic disease and the diabetes classes will only accept 16 people in a class.
Okay.
So if there's 25 people signed up, then we'll schedule another class shortly after that, or, you know, there will be a wait list.
Okay. So important if they're interested to make the call and see if they can get in. And again, there's no cost for any of these
Correct.
classes. They are
Right.
Funded under the Older Americans Act. I don't want to leave the show without talking about the fall prevention class, which is Matter of Balance, which
Right.
is one that you have been offering for a long time.
Right.
Tell me, Clark, what does that class offer?
It's kind of the entry-level course to these, in my estimation, the way I look at it. A very simple class, simple exercise, some wonderful DVDs where other seniors talk about the challenges of and the fears they have about falling. And again, getting in a small group, getting these fears out into the open, and for folks to understand it's not just me. And some simple exercises that folks can do seated, gently behind their chair, and just learning that maybe I can do something and become a little active. Being proactive, just the fact they've come to a scheduled class. They have to come out every Wednesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and for a couple of hours, you know, consider ways in which to get more balanced and not fall down.
Pat, I remember attending one of your classes to observe it. Not only were the participants doing some physical exercises, and there was a wide range of participants, from I think someone in a wheelchair to people who had probably come off the tennis court to come to the class, but also there was a discussion of, you know, if you're in a crowd, how to have kind of a defensive
Right.
strategy to make sure that you have a space that's safe to walk into. I was very impressed with the participants. Were very resourceful and shared their strategies with other people.
Yeah, it's all about reducing your risk of falling and your fear of falling, and many of us have a fear of falling from some experience and we know that that can be a life-changing event. So this class really focuses on those strategies to help us to become braver and reduce our risk of falling.
All of these are so important to our community, and I thank both of you for what you do and for bringing that information to our audience today. And I thank our audience for joining us for this program, Aging on the Suncoast.